important thing that I loved about this movie is that it takes us behind the scenes. This movie is not about government. It is not about politics. It is definitely not about the West. It is not about what party handles terrorism better than the other, or what civilization is better prepared to deal with terrorism, or what civilization is not about terrorism. This is about real people. It is about families. It is about emotions, from anguish to anger to forgiveness. It is about decisions, personal decisions, from deceit and secrets and lies to honesty and just openness, and finally forgiveness and the process of forgiveness itself. So that is the beauty about it, and I'm sure that there are so many things that we can talk about in this aspect.
Hello, Maria. Hello. Hello. Sishiki simu, si eti Nicola date like a boy. Sishiki simu, sishiki simu. Hello. Hello. Sishiki simu, hebu please nielewe niko job. Sishiki simu, mapenzi kama hivi siwezi tena. Wivu wako mimi siwezi. Ukinikumbatia uniwachili. Uone kama nanukia. Chani wengine. Oh baby, mbona sasa napikuwa kipenzi changu. Unahisi nina mpango wa kando. Hello. Sishiki simu.
This is just an overview to just get us into the discussion. So I'll just look at hands and take questions.
What I found interesting was the fact that you had this story about something that happened in Africa in the 90s, and nobody, I don't know if anybody really heard about this story. It wasn't very publicized. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to show it, to let people know that this has been happening on the continent for a while.
It was talked about mainly, again, in these lines of politics and government and the West. And it became a story not so much about Kenya, but about the United States, because it was the embassy. And in fact, I don't know if you've heard of some of the critics who have said that had this incident been approached in a humane, assertive way, 9/11 wouldn't have happened. Some critics have said that, in fact. But it was seen as distant in some ways. If you look at the casualties there, it was more of Africans who died there. And so there was some lax in response.
How many would you say actually perished that day? Do we know?
Yeah, there were hundreds of people who died, but most of them were Kenyans. Some of them were lost forever because the number is just. In fact, there's just no agreement in the numbers because some of them were just buried and just lost there.
I obviously didn't understand a lot of the Swahili, but
I'm sorry, I may try and do another school.
that's all right. The pain
It was understood.
and love and the hurt and all the emotions,
Yeah.
you were able to pick those up. And I had no problem understanding that. And that doesn't matter if you're in Africa or if you're here. It's pain and loss.
Yes.
And love
Yeah.
and forgiveness.
Fortunately, when Mochi gave it to me to pre-screen to be ready for this, I was able to see the subtitles there. And as I said, I don't speak Swahili, so the subtitles helped me. And not that we are mixing too much because we could tell from the emotions, but it would have been nice to see that dialogue between Abu and Farid towards the end, because that's one of the things that gets lost in the debate here, because in the West, sometimes people just think about a simple dichotomy of them and ours, or Christianity and Islam. So that dialogue was really powerful to see these two friends who were raised Muslims, and one is trying to justify something in the name of Islam, and the other is saying, why are you so bitter? What is going on? Of course, he didn't tell him all the details. He just was saying, he came to say goodbye to him, of course. And that dialogue was so powerful, and it shows you how complex this situation is, that it's not a simple white or black or even gray. It's more complex than that, and that dialogue was really powerful. Yes.
Okay, I really liked the movie, and I thought it was very realistic and captured everything because, you know, I'm Kenyan and I happened to be in the country when that whole thing happened. And I like the way they caught, even, you know, I didn't want to end up being the person talking during the movie, but, you know, but there were no subtitles, and I wish.
I just knew somebody said
You come sit down here next time.
Because they have the usual, they have the moderate versus the, what do you call, the extremist argument, because at one point, you know, Farid was telling, I think it was Abu, that, you know, you don't understand, you know, I'm doing this for you. And then Abu at one point even quoted the Quran telling him that, you know, if you kill someone and they're not a combatant, you know, and everything in such, you know, you're actually committing a sin. But, you know, and then Farid was saying, you know, I'm doing this for you. You know, so, you know, there was the back and forth because Abu and there was the more moderate Muslim and Farid was more extremist. So
that's when he came to his home in the morning to pray with him. That's when they
that was
had
his way of saying
goodbye.
That dialogue
that
was
talk in the
powerful.
morning when he came to his home to pray with him. And they were talking back and forth. And that it was really understood that that was the dialogue that was going on. And neither could convince the other, although you saw that there was a brotherhood and an understanding and a love. But there was a difference in terms
interpretation.
of...
You know,
Yeah.
it's about interpretation.
Yes.
Because I used to go to a mosque, I learned about things, but what he learns is not what I learned. So they can take one part and make it to fit whatever situation they want, but you know, may not always be the same for everyone else. That's the Bible and the Quran and so on.
And sometimes, as this movie shows, it becomes really personal. It's not so much the collective as the personal, and what people are influenced by, because from the depiction in the movie, we see that Abu and Farid had come a long way. They didn't just get to know each other then. So we are left to read between the lines to see that they may have gone to the same school, for example, played in the same neighborhood, probably went to the same mosques, were taught by the same imams, you know, went to the same Quranic schools. But then, at some point, there was this departure. There was this difference in the outcome of how they eventually interpreted Islam. So sometimes it departs from the collective. It becomes personal, and that is why it's so complex that policymakers can't just sit down in their offices or, you know, somewhere detached from that complexity and expect to solve the problems.
I wanted to make sure the filmmaker was a woman, correct?
Yes.
A woman.
Yes.
All right. From what your knowledge of, and I do remember this incident also when it occurred. I think the Clinton administration was in,
Yes.
and we were spending it very much in as far as what was lost, as far as America was concerned. Is there a different perspective, do you think, that she brought to it by being a woman, looking at it in this aspect, than a man, per se, from Kenya or even from anywhere else on the continent?
Well, in some respects, one could see the address of gender there, where you have this woman, Joyce, who's really a protagonist in this, and it's like everything revolves around her, has supposedly that she was missing, and so she's that protagonist. And the girl, the girl child, and I think she was doing this movie at a time that there's this emphasis on the girl child. So you have this Tammany also, who's also protagonist. So if you look at it that way, you kind of see that address of a woman, seeing the centrality of women in the whole saga there. But I would also say that in so many ways, I think it is an African perspective. And in so many ways, this is showing us what Africans see from this whole thing, which makes it really interesting and beautiful that we are doing this. And thanks for bringing this to us here, that we are doing this here to see the perspectives of Africans, because not everyone makes a movie out of this, but the discussions are there. I'm originally from Nigeria and Sierra Leone. I always say Nigeria and Sierra Leone because I was born in Nigeria and actually grew up in Kaduna, where the Christmas bomber is from. The Christmas bomber. Yeah. I was actually so in fact that is one of the reasons why I have these perspectives, because I grew up there. That's where I learned to walk. That's where I took my first. So again, seeing the complexity, so that it's not like some people would interpret it and say, "Don't ever go to Kaduna. Kaduna brings up terrorists," and all of that. It is more complex than these things. So again, going back to what I was about to say. I'm from Nigeria and Sierra Leone. My parents are from Sierra Leone, and they were immigrants in Nigeria. So I was born there. I grew up there till I was 14 years old before I went to Sierra Leone. And I do go back home from time to time. And I tell you, these are discussions that Africans have. It is always a pleasure to go back and see the other perspectives. I tell you, the discussions there are so different from what we have here. And you have to be objective and open your eyes to listen to them from where they're coming from. Because if you don't, and you just go with your eyes and minds closed, you're just going to say, "Oh, they're not helping us against terrorism." You've got to listen where they're coming from. And yes, she's made a movie about this, and there's the gender perspective, and she's such a brilliant filmmaker. But I'm sure that she tapped from those conversations going on, those discussions that are going on.
What really impressed me, I'm Kenyan, and I was here in the U.S. when it happened, but I still remember it very well because it impacted my family and my life. What really impressed me is based on her name, I can tell, I don't think she's Muslim, so she seems to have a different background just based on her name. And I don't know if you know, she seems to be not a Muslim. But she was able to capture, and I was explaining to my friends because they're Muslim.
So you're interpreting?
Yeah, I was translating to them as the discussion, the dialogue, the one about the differences between the extremist and Abu. And she captured the essence of it so well. And for somebody who's, she must have done a lot of research and understood, because she did it so well to the point that even for me, and I grew up in that community, I hadn't ever seen it that way, and that was very impactful.
The dialogue, where she verbalized?
Yes, that morning, she was able to capture the essence of the differences between the two, the extremists and the moderate Islamists. And it was done so beautifully, and the Swahili was so pure, because we've got different types of Swahili, and that Swahili was so pure and beautiful, and it was just really, honestly, for me, really nice to experience it. So she did a great job.
Encore!
With subtitles.
I just wanted to add to what she's saying. I'm also from Kenya, and I was there when that happened. So for me, I was almost lost in everything that was going around, because it was sort of real for me. It was something that I experienced then. And like she said, I think these conversations were not happening then. I think that was one of the things that opened up the discussion about the different views and different people that think differently. So then I would say that most people were not discussing. They still sort of open that sort of discussion.
Great.
I think the camera work was fantastic. It was beautiful. It really added to the texture and complexity of what was happening, and it gave more meaning to the emotions.
Yes.
And the music was wonderful, and I'm glad that she chose, pure Kenyan, I guess, or African music. A lot of times, people choose classical or symphonic or some other type of music, but this was African music, so it really added beauty to the film.
And talking about the technicality in the movie, yes, I agree with you that she's such a good filmmaker in that sense. Because, and I guess that's why we did miss the subtitles. I mean, we're just captivated by that. Really, it says something about the film itself. And you're so right, the technicality there, and you see all the right moves where you want them. For me, one of the most profound scenes that was so well depicted, because there wasn't any dialogue there was music in the background. It's the scene where little Tammany was depicting the chaos that was going on around her. Did you see that? It was so profound. And you get this feeling that one didn't have to be an adult to see the chaos all around, that this child could capture it, and she would look up, and she just did it. And we didn't need any dialogue. We certainly didn't need any English subtitles to tell us that. That, I think, is one of the most powerful scenes.
And the other
Yes.
one was where he was washing the blood.
Yes, that, yeah. Yes, Charmin, sounds like way back when you were in class.
Class, right? Thank you, Moji. You always one of my sheroes in the city for bringing content like this. As a mother, an artist, and my little underground activism, I commit to, and my double major was history at Agnes Scott True, I commit to researching the story that African Americans have experienced from current to past and ancestral, because we know that our story has not been easily, it's not easy to even research or to gather. It hasn't been kept. It's been filtered through. It's been altered. It's been recreated for whatever the reasons are. We know that, post-enslavement America. So for the journey for me as a mother, it's just exciting for my children to be able to look at even beyond our borders of this country into the intricacies and intimacies of our brothers and sisters, or even our own ancestry onto the continent. And so we have a film that talks about a little girl who became an artist. I'm an artist, so I am all over, like, can we get more of them? How can more people be in this room? How can I get a copy? My kids would love this. I mean, because we have to commit to starting to gather and fill the pieces in. As an African-American mother, I know we do, and fill the pieces in, aside from what has been fed to us by mainstream media. I mean, mainstream media, go ahead. It doesn't have all the answers for us. We've got to fill all the pieces in. And events like these are so important. At the Carter Center, it really is. And the statement of it to be in the South, in Atlanta, post-civil rights, Atlanta, at the Carter Center. It's very important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon, for bringing up the significance of art in this whole thing, because one of the main things we see there also is creativity and healing, and the role of art. That is being emphasized ever more so than ever. And there are artists who are pushing an agenda of rehabilitation through art. Because again, my country of Sierra Leone was involved in an 11-year-old war. And that's one of the main things that artists are doing. And some of these artists are not artists that are trained in a structured way. They're just talented and doing murals, doing things like that. And even the UN and NGOs worked with them, called them in to see what they could do. And that is a powerful avenue for healing and rehabilitation now. And the fact that we have girls and women in that is also powerful.
One more question, because we have to kind of round up now.
I don't have a question, but I have
Oh,
more of a
small.
statement.
One of the things I really enjoyed the movie, and I'm really glad the subtitles were on. Just because it gave a different way of reflecting, it almost felt like a Spike Lee difference, you know, if I can say that. But what I was going to say was just in thinking about the way the movie was shown, as they were telling the story of his life and her life, it felt, even though what had happened to him was in the past, I'm talking about the detective or whoever, it felt very present. It never felt like that was the past. And that was very different for me. And it was almost like, this is happening again, it's another bombing. My mind went there. And I don't know how she did that, but that was very brilliant. So I just really wanted to acknowledge that part. I've not experienced that before, with or without subtitles.
He's had his hand up for the longest time, so let's take him as the last one.
Yeah, I'd like to just say that, it's good to see black directors and musicians from Africa, come out and, produce good work. And I've had the opportunity to go to 3 African countries, Morocco, Senegal, and Gambia, and loved it. And they're very, African people, we're the same people, so we're very intelligent and, doing things that are like, people don't really hear about. But as far as in the movie, a lot of it I didn't understand, but 2 images that kind of stood out to me was the man really loved his daughter, and love is a heart language. So, all of us can relate to that. And another part of the movie was when the guy was getting ready to do the bombing, and he looks over and he looks at the girl. And a lot of times in life, when you're like angry, and you look at a kid, sometimes if you're angry, and maybe you're talking to your mother, or you see a little kid, it's something in you when you see it, you say, it's not so bad after all.
He was trying to break his smile.
Right, so but he couldn't break out of that, that thinking.
But it was a moment.
Yeah,
Right.
it was.
Yeah, so those were 2 things that were really kind of stood out. Yeah.
And on that positive note, I say thank you.
Thank you very much,
Hello. Sishiki simu, si eti niko na date na kaboy. Sishiki simu, sishiki simu. Sishiki simu, hebu please nielewe niko job. Sishiki simu, mapenzi kama hivi, siwezi tena. Mapenzi kama hivi, I don't want no more. Mapenzi kama hivi, siwezi tena. Mapenzi kama hivi, I don't want no more. Mapenzi kama hivi, siwezi tena. Mapenzi kama hivi, I don't want no more. Mapenzi kama hivi, siwezi tena. Mapenzi kama hivi, I don't want no more. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.